everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and here I am with my review of this week's SmackDown Live, the Fallout SmackDown from Money in the Bank. Adam Pacini will be back soon, but I might not see him when he gets back. I'll be off to bloody Las Vegas for Double or Nothing. What a life. What a life it is. It's going to be so warm. I'm not going to do well in the sun. So without any further ado, let's take a look at how good SmackDown Live was, and there's only one way to determine that, and that is by assigning each individual segment a lovely individual grade. This is SmackDown Live Graded. We actually start SmackDown with a cold open. What is this, bloody Breaking Bad? Elias meets with Shane McMahon backstage and apologises for what happened at Money in the Bank when he lost easily to Roman Reigns. He said that he put all his energy into his musical performance and that energy was drained by the negative fan response. And Shane goes, okay, that's fair enough. That's your opening segment. Now, I'm not going to give that a grade on its own because it was just a cold open. It was the equivalent of like a little backstage interview. But it did change things up slightly, I suppose, from the traditional opening segment, which would open the show in the ring. I didn't mind it, you know? I didn't mind it at all. But let's crack on with the actual opening segment of SmackDown Live. So Kofi and Xavier come out and say, oh, there's a big return coming tonight. We're going to introduce him. I think you know who it is. That's right. Big E is back, and they unveil this guy who isn't Big E. He's a smaller man, and everyone boos him, and he runs away. Now, this smaller man was probably about 6 foot, 6'1", jacked, bigger than I'll ever be in my life, but obviously smaller than the gargantuan Big E. But I just found it a bit insulting to me immortals like myself when they were looking at this really well-built, in-shape guy and mocking him for being smaller than a giant. But it's not long before the real Big E comes out. They dance down to the ring. There's all kinds of gift-wrapped boxes in the ring to celebrate Big E's return. They reference his Twitter game, which has been astonishing since he's been out with an injury. They also reference his love, his rather deep and disturbing love for Becky Lynch's mother. They tell him that she's accounted for, she's not single, and he goes, but she's so fine, I want her so much. Which is funny, I think. But they don't get to celebrate for long before they are interrupted by Kevin Owens, who of course lost his title match to Kofi Kingston at Money in the Bank, and his new/old/new/old ally, Sami Zayn. Sami gets on the mic and he's really annoyed because there's all these gifts and this big celebration for Big E's return, and he says he was away for 9 months and he didn't get anything when he came back. And the New Day all get in a little group and they go, right, we know what we're going to do. We're going to get you something to celebrate your return, Sami Zayn. Or they just keep calling him Sam for some reason. They say, we'll get you exactly what Kevin Owens got at Money in the Bank. Nothing. Wait. Take that, Sami, you bloody little heel. You don't deserve to be happy. KO takes this really, really badly, actually, and just gives the mic to Sami and just leaves. And I thought, oh, that's a bit interesting. Could this be building to something later on in the show? And it kind of did. I think it did, but I don't know how further that storyline's going to progress, but we'll get to that later on. Sami tries to cut an angry promo on the New Day because they've made his best friend leave. They've upset him. He tries to cut a promo on them, but Xavier keeps interrupting him very childishly with the trombone, and everyone finds it right hilarious and stuff. Eventually, though, Kofi and Sami agree to a match later on tonight on SmackDown Live. I wonder who's going to win that one. I'm going to give this opening segment a B-. It was largely okay. The only reason I'm penalising it slightly is because I feel like the heels were maybe clowned on a little bit too much, especially since Kevin Owens lost at Money in the Bank, and I just think it's quite important that he's kept looking strong. And by storming away and not really even trying to cut a promo back on the New Day, it was different, I'll give them that, but I don't know if it was the most effective thing they could have done with Kevin Owens. Next up, we get our first match of the night, Ali versus Andrade, a battle of the two men who've lost one half of their ring names, with obviously Zelina Vega accompanying Andrade to the ring. Andrade dominated the vast majority of the match, beating down Ali, but Ali showed great babyface resiliency. He's one of the best on the roster at the moment at firing up in big babyface fashion, trying to get the crowd on side and really trying to build up a head of steam throughout his matches. He's very, very good at that. That's very much his forte. But eventually, I was expecting Andrade to win. It was actually Ali who picked up the victory with a sneaky, shocking inside cradle for the 3. I was surprised, especially considering that Andrade is being built towards that IC title match with Finn Balor in Saudi Arabia, but at the same time, Ali had Money in the Bank pretty much won on Sunday until Brock Lesnar made a shocking return. So I can see why Ali would be kept strong as well, so I don't have any major complaints with the outcome. I'll give this a B. It wasn't a particularly long match, and it's certainly the sort of match I would like to see go a little bit longer, especially given the skills of both men in the ring, but it was a good contest between two very, very good wrestlers, and there's not really much more to say about it. Next up, Mandy Rose versus Carmella, accompanied by R-Truth, but don't worry, because there's various 24/7 championship shenanigans surrounding this match, so I'll just whiz through what happened in the match, and then we'll do a lovely breakdown of all the 24/7 action that happened on and before this episode of SmackDown Live. Don't even worry about it. I've got it all covered in my notes. So Mandy Rose versus Carmella lasted for about a minute and a half maybe, until R-Truth was chased by various members of the SmackDown undercard, the underclass of SmackDown, the kind of guys who are going to be competing for the 24/7 championship, and also a few members of the 205 Live roster as well. I saw Noam Dar there, I saw Brian Kendrick there. They all chased R-Truth. He grabbed Carmella, she got on his back, and they piggybacked their way out of the arena with a sizable chunk of the roster in hot pursuit, while Mandy and Sonya were just in the ring like, oh, by then, do we win? I don't think a result was even officially announced. I'm gonna have to give this the old question mark grade, because honestly, it wasn't really a segment in itself. It was just something to feed into the wider 24/7 storyline. Right, it might sound like I'm taking this whole 24/7 championship thing very seriously, and I am, because it is very important, and I want to say it's currently the most prestigious championship in all of WWE. And no, I'm not biased, because I myself am a former 2-time DDT Ironman heavy metalweight champion. That's got nothing to do with it at all. Now let's take a look at what happened in the old 24/7 division, the div. So various things happened in 24/7 action. I couldn't wait to see who'd emerge from SmackDown Live as the new 24/7 champion. So before the show, we had little vignettes that you can see on YouTube, on WWE's official YouTube channel, featuring the likes of Matt Hardy, or maybe sometimes the Singh brothers, or Heavy Machinery, all planning to win, all taking up positions around the arena in the parking lot or whatever, waiting for R-Truth to arrive so they could jump him and take his title. This is exactly what I wanted from 24/7 action. I wanted to see people planning things out, staking out the arena, doing a bit of recon. Oh, it fills me with goodness. I really love it. I love strategy. I love tactics. Special shout out to my boy Matt Hardy as well, who was the only person while he was hiding amongst the cars in the parking lot to realize that the cameraman was giving away his position. He was like, "Get out of here," which is great. It's not a good Matt Hardy impression, but it's great strategy, great thinking from Big Matthew. So then we get to the show itself, and this was all spread out into several little backstage chunks. First of all, Carmella, before her match that we've just talked about, it's like a flashback, she was looking for R-Truth backstage. She saw Drake Maverick, who was putting up flyers like wanted signs, "Have you seen this man?" And it was R-Truth with his 24/7 title. And she went, "Have you seen R-Truth?" And he went, "No, but if you see him, let him know, or let me know where he is." Then she moved a little bit further down the corridor, bumped into Apollo Crews, and she said the same, "Have you seen R-Truth?" And he went, "No, but if you see him, you let me know where he is." Then she moved a little bit further down the corridor, and there was R-Truth, feet away from the two men looking for him, but he was wearing a lovely blonde wig and sunglasses, so I can't blame them for not recognizing him. Carmella actually isn't a fan of R-Truth's disguise. She says it's not very good, and she's like, "Come with me," and she grabs him, and they hide in a little side room, and she says, "Why did you even come to SmackDown Live? Everyone's looking for you." And he said, quite heartwarmingly, "I couldn't do this without you. Couldn't keep hold of this title without you." I was like, oh, R-Truth and Carmella, that's lovely. Carmella gives him effectively a makeover, dresses him in better sort of disguises. There's a better wig, there's better clothes, she gives him a bra, but ultimately, he still looks like R-Truth. He's still 6 foot and clearly a male wrestler. But you know, fair play. I think that it could be an effective disguise, given the fact that Apollo and Drake Maverick couldn't recognize him standing feet away with a substandard disguise on. So well done, Carmella. A+ for effort. That's not an official grade, Sam. Don't put that in the... That's not a real grade. Then there's the match between Carmella and Mandy Rose, which I've just talked about, and the roster all run in after R-Truth. He grabs Carmella and they hightail it out of there. And then later on in the show, this is the final 24/7 championship segment of the night. They're being chased through the back, and R-Truth gets jumped by Jinder Mahal, who tries to roll him up, and I'm like, oh, new champion, no. Truth kicks out. Then he gets jumped by the B team, and then Bo Dallas goes to make the pinfall, but Curtis Axel pulls him off. They can't decide who should pin him. R-Truth whips one of them into the other, and him and Carmella just run off into the night. Like CM Punk when he escaped with the WWE Championship at the end of Money in the Bank 2011. That is exactly what it was like. This gets a B. Conservative booking, keeping the title on a strong champion. Good to build him up. I love to see it. No, I'm just kidding. This does get a B, but it's just wacky and fun, and I love it. And I won't have anyone tell me otherwise. And I don't even care if the belt's ugly. I don't even care. This is what you want. I love it. We'll see how long before I get sick of it, though. could have diminishing returns. Next up, we get Kofi Kingston versus Sami Zayn, the match that was set up in the opening segment of the night. And it seems as though Kevin Owens has re-injured Big E backstage, probably as retribution for the New Day clowning all over him in that opening segment. Now, probably because of his friend's injury, Kofi Kingston is all kinds of fired up for the match against Sami Zayn, and it only takes him about sort of 7 or 8 minutes, less than 10 minutes certainly, to dispatch Sami Zayn. It's still a pretty good match. Obviously, both guys are really good wrestlers, but Kofi picks up the very clean, very simple victory with a Trouble in Paradise. But the segment isn't over yet. Paul Heyman comes out onto the ramp with Brock Lesnar's Money in the Bank briefcase in hand and teases a cash-in. He says, now looks like the pretty perfect time, Kofi, because Kofi's a little bit tired, having just had a match. Then Kofi gets jumped, but it's not by Brock Lesnar. Brace yourselves. It's by Dolph Ziggler. He's back. Dolph Ziggler. Where's he been? This is a pretty brutal beatdown from Dolph Ziggler, wrapping a steel chair around Kofi's neck, throwing him into the ringside area, stamping on the chair with Kofi's head still trapped inside, and then storming to the back. And Kofi, to make him look like a strong and resilient champion, refuses medical attention, refuses to do the stretcher job, and walks to the back. Interesting. Let's break it down. Break it down, not like that. Let's break it down in graded fashion. So this very much was designed to be the centerpiece of the show and the big talking point, but I'm only going to give it a B-. Now let's explain exactly why. Okay, first and foremost, Kofi Kingston versus Sami Zayn is the sort of match that I would happily see given 15 minutes on a pay-per-view, maybe even longer. They're both really good wrestlers. There clearly is a bit of a chemistry there that they could develop with time, and I just feel as though it didn't deserve to be a TV match that went under 10 minutes and led to a very decisive victory. That's all I'm saying. But the match itself was still pretty good. Then Kofi gets attacked by the very man who should be having these 10-minute TV matches with him, Dolph Ziggler. Although the attack was pretty good, and I have to admit that it was pretty refreshing to see Ziggler back after quite a while away. So it's not all bad. You know, I've not given it like a D grade or anything. It does get a B-. It's just that there were certain little imperfections that I thought seriously hindered the segment. And one more thing, I guess, as well. Paul Heyman said that it was the perfect time for a cash-in when Kofi was a little bit tired after his brief match with Sami Zayn, but then when he was absolutely beaten down by Ziggler and had a steel chair wrapped around his neck and stamped on, Heyman was nowhere to be seen. Why didn't Brock Lesnar come out then and lay a finger on him for the victory? I'm starting to think that Lesnar wasn't even in the building at all. No way. Next up, out of nowhere, a tag match featuring maybe the 4 biggest women on the roster right now. Becky Lynch and Bayley teaming up to take on Lacey Evans and Charlotte Flair. This match was okay, it was perfectly fine, but it just felt a little bit surreal after everything that went down at Money in the Bank. There was no sort of big cool-off period. Yes, stuff happened on Monday Night Raw, but just 2 days after the pay-per-view, it was weird seeing, you know, these 4 really intense rivals all chilling on the apron, waiting for tags, not just immediately rushing each other and being pulled apart by security. That was just the sense I got of it. Maybe you disagree, but I felt as though this match felt just a bit too casual to happen at this point in everyone's respective storylines. So just to recap, in one match we have the former double champion, who's still the champion of one brand, we have her new rival, Lacey Evans, we also have her main nemesis, Charlotte Flair, and we have the woman who cashed in on Charlotte Flair to become the new SmackDown Women's Champion. That's just too much stuff going on to be squeezed into one pretty short match on TV. Do you not think it should have been more of a brawly sort of segment, or maybe a war of words or something? I just felt like this was a little bit strange and a little bit out of step with where the storyline is at the moment. Anyway, Bayley wins, getting the roll-up on Charlotte Flair, which I enjoyed. I thought that was a good decision, a good finish to the match, but I'm still only going to give it a C+, just because, as I say, it felt so out of place. It does get a C+ rather than a C or a C- or something, because I think that it was important that Bayley got the pinfall to continue looking strong so soon after she's won the title, and especially the fact that she got the roll-up on Charlotte as well, I guess, is a little bonus too. But then again, I just don't think that all 4 women should have even been on this show. I don't think they all needed to be there. Certainly not Becky, and certainly not Lacey Evans, who very much seems to be concentrated on Raw right now. I don't know why she was one of the wild cards moving over to SmackDown for this week. Next up, Dolph Ziggler's back again. He just pops out again after attacking Kofi and nearly breaking his neck. He comes out to cut a promo explaining his actions. I don't know why he didn't do this immediately after the attack. I think that would have been more effective, but whatever. We get 2 Dolph Ziggler segments. Is he the Baron Corbin of SmackDown Live? To be fair, Ziggler's explanation is a good one, and it certainly fits his character. He says that this all stems back to before Elimination Chamber when Ali got injured and Kofi Kingston got his shot in that gauntlet match, which of course ultimately led to Kofi's huge push and his win at WrestleMania. Ziggler says that should have been him getting that opportunity, and obviously everyone disagrees and boos, but it does fit Ziggler's character to a T. He is so entitled and feels as though, you know, he's owed so much that I think it's exactly what his character would do at this moment. So I didn't mind that at all, but it wasn't like a perfect segment or anything. Let's see what I've given it as a grade. I'm actually going to give this segment a B, and when I saw Ziggler come back out, I was like, oh no, what's he going to do? I can't be bothered with this. But his promo was good. I mean, I think Ziggler's good on the mic anyway. It's normally just how he's written and what his character does that's a bit infuriating. But this all made sense. As I say, the character motivation made sense, and also he challenged Kofi Kingston to do a match in Saudi Arabia at Super ShowDown. Now, immediately, you might think that's a bad thing and that I should be taking away points for that. But instead, I quite like it because nobody wants to see Dolph Ziggler end Kofi Kingston's reign. And I think by kind of shuffling this match off to Saudi Arabia and everything, it's kind of guaranteed that Kofi, I don't want to jinx it, but it seems as though Kofi Kingston's going to defeat Dolph Ziggler and get another win to galvanize his title reign. And I'm all for it, and Ziggler's a good worker in the ring and everything. I think it can work. I think it'll be pretty decent, and I don't mind it much at all, really. I bet loads of people disagree. And finally, we get the main event of the evening, Roman Reigns versus Elias, with, of course, Shane McMahon at ringside. This match was actually very similar to a match that happened just one night previously on Raw, which was The Miz versus Drew McIntyre with Shane McMahon at ringside. Shane behaved exactly the same in both matches, being a constant little pest and trying to interfere on behalf of the heel. And I've just noticed this creeping into the product more and more since Vince McMahon introduced the wildcard rule. We'll have segments on Raw that happen, and then another segment on SmackDown that happens just one day after, and it's so similar that it gets quite annoying. But the match progresses exactly as you'd expect Roman Reigns versus Elias 2, with Roman perhaps being a little bit less dominant than we might have thought, just because Shane was being a constant irritant on the outside, constantly tipping the scales in favour of his boy. Eventually, though, it looks like Roman's about to win, so Shane slides Elias's guitar into the ring and distracts the referee. Elias picks up the guitar and is immediately taken out with a spear, and Roman Reigns picks up the victory. But then Shane's immediately on him with little lefts and rights from full mount position. It's like mixed martial arts, except I'm always worried when Shane does this that he's actually just catching people in the face. Hopefully Roman's okay. I didn't see anything to suggest that he did hit him, really, but you never know. Roman was able to fight Shane off because, of course, he should be able to do that. It's only Shane McMahon, come on. But then Drew McIntyre sneaked into the ring and just blasted Roman Reigns with a big Claymore kick. A really nice Claymore kick, actually. And then he and Shane gloated, and that was the end of the show. For this segment, I'm going to grade it a C+. I just felt as though it was so similar to what happened on Raw. It was a bit of a carbon copy, and that does get a little bit irritating at times. Another reason it gets quite a low grade as well is that it's another segment where Shane seems to have been winning a lot recently. Not just winning matches like the two he's won against The Miz on pay-per-view, but also emerging victorious in segments. He hasn't really got his comeuppance yet, and I know the whole point of a heel in wrestling, this is basics. I know that a heel is meant to get you annoyed so that when eventually they do get their comeuppance, you love the babyface even more for it. I understand that, but it just feels like Shane has been on top for quite a long time now, and I am starting to get a little bit sick of it. In fact, you could say that he's becoming the new Roman Reigns, the heel version of Roman Shanes, let's call him that. Right, anyway, the overall grade for SmackDown Live this week is a B-. I thought it was quite a run-of-the-mill show. Nothing especially good or bad happened, but at least we got some good action from the likes of Andrade, Ali, Sami Zayn, and Kofi Kingston. And yes, some of the booking decisions were a bit iffy, but the big one that everyone's talking about, the Dolph Ziggler one, I really don't mind that much, just purely because it's happening in Saudi Arabia and not on a main pay-per-view. I don't think I'd quite like to see him get a title shot at like a main show, but the fact that it's happening in Saudi Arabia where there's so many other big matches going on, I just think it'll be seen as a nice little, you know, tally on the wall for Kofi, galvanise his title reign, and we'll progress on to the next challenger. That's what I'm hoping anyway. Now watch Ziggler beat him clean as a whistle at Super ShowDown and become the new WWE champion. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.